In today's video, I'm going to be showing you guys how to maintain your generator by doing a 100-hour service. But before we get everything that we need, we're going to go ahead and start it up and get it warmed up. This will help thin the oil. That way it makes it a little bit easier to drain. And then we'll get all the stuff we need, like this 8mm socket, a 10mm socket, and a 12mm socket, flathead screwdriver, and a Phillips, and a little flathead, along with this 1/4-inch drive for those sockets, this 10mm wrench, along with a 3/8 ratchet, a 3/8 extension, a 13/16 spark plug wrench with a little grommet is helpful, along with a little bit of a gap tool, also a pair of pliers, this bristle brush, along with our new spark plug, and also maybe a couple power tools if you want to make things quicker, something to catch the oil in, and also some gloves do come in handy, and also some oil, which this is not the late great oil debate, so let's not get into that. Now that our generator is warmed up, we can go ahead and shut this off, and we're going to start off with the oil change first. I won't spend a whole lot of time here because this really is a simple procedure. We'll just take out the drain plug. I do have my generator tilted, so this is going to help it drain just a little bit faster. We'll take the 10mm socket, we'll go ahead and open up the drain bolt and take that out, and then we'll go ahead and let it drain. And while you guys are here, this is a good time to smash that like button if you like the video, and subscribe if you want to see more content coming out real soon. We'll go ahead and put the drain bolt back in now that the oil is out, and then we're going to go ahead and fill it up with oil. And you can use a 5-weight 30 or even a 10-weight 30, but it's not a bad idea to also look at how much oil came out to see the running condition. So now go ahead and fill up the generator slowly and take your time so you don't make a mess. And the generator holds about 550 cc's of oil, and you'll know it's full when you see the oil is up onto the threads of where the dipstick goes. And now that the generator is full, we can go ahead and put the dipstick back in, and then we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step, which is going to be changing out the spark plug, which this is also an easy procedure, and I'll have links in the description down below of all the parts that are needed to do this procedure. So go ahead and take off the spark plug boot up top. Now we'll go ahead and grab our 13/16 spark plug socket, which this has that little rubber grommet, and this helps pull out the spark plug by holding on to it after you loosen it and take it out. We'll go ahead and take out the spark plug by turning it counterclockwise, and you can see that this spark plug is due to be changed. It's got about 150 hours on it, and I prefer NGK spark plugs, but before I put the new one in, I'm going to go ahead and just check the gap. This isn't something that you always have to do, but I just make it a common practice, and it's supposed to be gapped between 28 and 32 thousandths. I'm going to put it right at the middle of 30, and then we'll go ahead and slide it back into the spark plug socket. This will hold on to it, and then we can go ahead and reinstall it. I usually like to give it about a 1/4 turn or a 1/2 turn to the left, and then it'll seat, and then we can go ahead and start threading it back in and tighten it down with our wrench. After you've gotten this tightened down, you'll feel the crush washer starting to tighten up. Go ahead and give it a good 1/4 to a 1/2 turn extra, and then you're done, and we can move on to our next step. But first, make sure you put your spark plug boot back on, and we'll go on to our last 3 steps. We're going to do the air filter next, and there's 2 retaining clips up top and 2 down below to remove the cover. And the pre-filter, you just wash this with warm Dawn dish soap and water, and it'll be clean and ready to go by the time we're done with this whole procedure. As we take a look at the air filter, now this actually isn't in bad shape at all. I actually did replace this a while back, but as you can see, the pleats are actually still really clean. If I was at a dealer, I would replace this and just charge you money, but for the most part, it's pretty good to use. I'll use it for another 50, maybe another 100, depending on the condition. Now the next thing we have to do is remove the rest of the air box with these 2 10mm bolts. And when you do this, take your time, and there is a trick. If you just loosen it all the way, tilt your wrench down, and this will actually get a hold of the nut that you can see right there, and now it won't fall off and go down into the bottom of the generator. And then we'll do the same thing with the next 10mm nut, and then we have a 10mm bolt that we have to get out as well. And then this will release the air box, but we do have a couple hoses we have to take off, like this one up at the top. There's another one that this one goes into the back of the air box, so we'll slide this out. And then at the back of the air box, I'll slide this off real carefully, and I'll show you there's one more hose we actually have to remove. You can see here on the clips, and now the air box is free, and we can remove this and get it out of the way. And this is the step that I find people skipping, is that they won't go after the sediment cup, which that little guy right there acts as kind of like a secondary fuel filter. It'll actually filter out some debris at the bottom of it and acts as a fuel water separator. All we need is a 10mm wrench to kind of break this open, and then we just have to loosen it up, and then we'll just take it off with our fingers here in a second. And make sure to put a towel down there because you are messing with fuel, and you don't want to drop the cup down below or also make a mess by dropping fuel everywhere. And so we'll screw this off the rest of the way, and I'll let you take a look inside here real quick. So now you can see some of the debris that's at the bottom of the cup. However, I don't see any water, which is good, but now we need to clean out that little bit of debris by either a rag or a brush. But I find what works really good is just WD-40. You can just take a little kind of a bottle like this and spray it in there, and it'll blast that stuff out, no problem. It's safe if it gets into the carburetor because it'll just burn right up real quick anyway. But a bristle brush works great as well. But I find the WD-40, just blasting it a few times is always something good to have. And look at that, it's clean and ready to go. So just kind of wipe it off because it is slick. And now we can go ahead and reinstall it back onto the fuel valve and then get this part done and reinstall our air filter box and move on to the next step, which is also another step some people will neglect to do. We'll continue installing the air box back onto the engine and make sure the two sleeves are on both of the studs where the carburetor mounts, and go ahead and reattach all your hoses that are in the back of the air box, also the one that goes on the bottom and the little vent hose that goes up on top. Then we'll do the same thing that we did earlier with our socket and these bolts. You're going to basically take those nuts and put them inside of your socket, tilt it down, and then just feed it on. I'm doing this all blind because I've done this several times before. But then all you have to do is just kind of feed it in there, put it on, and then tighten it down with your wrench. And then this will basically complete this step. And make sure these are all nice and tight. You don't have to over tighten them because you can strip them, but just really good and snug is all you need. We'll install our air filter. We'll go ahead and get our pre-filter and our air box cover and put that back on now. And make sure the space is facing the outside, just like on there, for easy installation. And then put down your 4 retainer clips. And then this part here, for the most part, is done. But there is one very important step we are going to do at the end of all of this, and I'll show you when we get there. So we'll finish up by putting our spark plug cover back on, and that pretty much concludes this step inside of the motor compartment, so lock that up. And now we'll move on to that spark arrestor, and since I have an actual wheel kit on here with the extension handles, I have to take off that little bar real quick. And then I have a tri-fuel kit as well, which that's just going to stay onto the back, but that helps me during the zombie apocalypse. I can run all 3 fuels if I need to. But we'll continue and get this wheel kit off real quick, which this doesn't take very long. We just have to take out a few bolts and a couple screws on each side, and then I can go ahead and take off the plastic cover that holds it together, rotate the bars basically forward, and they can just sit there and rest. Now there's 4 10mm bolts on the back of this. There's 2 up top, 2 down below, so we'll take those out. And then we'll go ahead and slide the cover back, and sometimes the actual studs will come out with this, which is no big deal. You see that one there is actually stuck, and then all you have to do is really just kind of put it back in with some Loctite and tighten it down. Now we're going to remove the exhaust cover with 4 10mm bolts, and then we'll go ahead and set this to the side. And then we'll continue on by removing the handle, and these are 4 12mm bolts that we'll have to get rid of. That way we can get to the back of the muffler and remove this little heat shield and kind of sound suppression box. Now that we got all those bolts and the handle is out of the way, then we can go ahead and just not lift this up, but all you have to do is rock it out, because it won't come up because you have to take the bottom plate off. But boom, there's enough room to get to our flame arrestor, and we just need an 8mm socket to take off 3 bolts. There's 2 up top and this one that's down on the side, so make sure you don't forget about that one. So we'll take our wrench real quick and break these loose, and sometimes these can be pretty hard depending on the condition of the generator. And then you'll just remove all 3 of these, and underneath the muffler pipe, this is where you'll see the spark arrestor right there, that little screen. And these get neglected sometimes and can get caked full of debris and carbon, and it'll make it hard for your generator to breathe, which this can cause hard starting and also rough running conditions sometimes. So we'll go ahead and clean this. This one's not very dirty, but a bristle brush works really good. You just scrape it along, but I actually like to use a flame. It's a little bit more fun, and it doesn't take very long at all, about 1 minute, and boom, that thing is clean and ready to be back installed into the generator. And then we just have to go ahead and reassemble everything that we just took apart. So we'll put our muffler pipe back on with the 3 8mm bolts, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall the little heat shield, and then we can put on our handle again, tighten down all 4 12mm bolts, and then we can go ahead and reinstall the exhaust screen, and then go ahead and put on the back cover plate. And now that we're pretty much done, we have one more very important step that we have to do once we get this fully assembled. Okay, first thing we got to do is get it fired up to make sure it still runs, because sometimes you never know, you might mess something up. But boom, there it goes, it fires right up. Go ahead and push that choke right in, and now this is what we have to check. go ahead and open that engine exhaust door. And now what we're going to do, since we did mess around with the fuel system, is we have to check for fuel leaks, any evidence of a fuel smell as well, because this can be very dangerous if you didn't happen to get that on all the way or it isn't tight. So make sure you do a good visual inspection of the fuel valve back there where that sediment cup was to make sure there is no leaking or evidence of fuel smell. And if everything looks and checks out good, well then you're pretty much done with this 100-hour service. And I hope you guys liked the video. Make sure to smash that thumbs up button, and until then, I hope to see you guys next time.